He's been doing a face-up study session, just my unfiltered thoughts on how I approach facing bets on the river against the population. I talk a lot about how to work backwards, like where I could maybe even fold pre-flop or the flop, wait a difficult river decision, where how, on the other hand, I might actually be able to play more hands on earlier streets if I'm getting some exciting river decisions. Does this line up? No solver noise here. This is entirely me analyzing my opponents and deviating from solver, trying to make indifferent decisions as straightforward as possible to actually get edge. So I've edited this down to just like trim out the dead air and the noise and just give you correct source as much as I can. Uh, I hope you enjoy. This is a taste of what working with me is like. Unfiltered study session. I am running a faced river bet filter. Should I be calling, or should I just be laying these down a lot? You need a consistent framework for like understanding the game just built into your head, and a big part of that is like positions, the line people take, the sizes they use. It's like an opening move in chess, the bet sizes someone is using. They open these hands pre-flop, where are they putting them post-flop? So it's not simply playing your hand, it's playing your hand in the context of the ranges. It's always about range versus range. We call against cutoff, we face a bet, we call the flop, and we face an overbet on the turn. We already have a decision. I'm not thinking I have top pair. I'm thinking I have a bluff catcher. They're only overbetting better ace X, two pair, sets, flush draws, and they should have some trash in there. They should have some pretty crummy stuff. There might even be something like pocket deuces with a diamond or without a diamond, just some like flair things in there that aren't like specifically draws because they don't just want to bet all their draws. And so question one is, should we just fold this all day? Do we actually have to respect this guy at all, or do we just fold this all day? This is where you can identify the crux of a spot. There is no absolute answer. Solver will probably tell you it's a mix, or it will say call this ace X and fold some other ace X, call some of them. The value isn't in doing it the correct solver amount of the time. The value is in either overdoing it or underdoing it. The value is in the fact that if your opponent's GTO, you can either fold them all the time or call them all the time. It doesn't matter. And if your opponent's leaning one way or the other, you have a clear answer. So your job is to find the clear answer if you can. Otherwise, you're just giving up potential edge. The game is to find the clear answer. The game is to find the imbalance, because the balance, it's implicit. The balance is this is a bluff catcher. The game is, do we want to bluff catch? And that's what gets left out of almost all public poker conversation, and even in most professional discourse I hear, because people are so scared to take a position and be wrong. It can also be a judgment call you make in real time, right? Like you're feeling this into in real time. It's not like you just get to come up with an answer, then you know it for forever. But you might go, until this nit shows me otherwise, I just fold here all the time. And so my intuition is saying I should just fold here. I think I saw them take an aggressive action in a different pot, and so I rationalized for a call. I think the other option is, once we call the turn, say they are overbluffing, say they are betting these flush draws, are they continuing to overbluff the river? If they're betting here with king 10 of diamonds, are they firing it on the river when they brick all the time, or do they just give it up because it's like bad removal? Some guys who exploit by folding turn, some who exploit by calling turn, folding river, some who exploit by calling turn and calling river. Your job to figure out which. And so when they bet here for this size, which looks pretty milky, like it's pretty medium, it's a very reasonable size for them to take with any of their value, and kind of a scary size to take with king queen of diamonds. I think I have a decision here, and I think this is where I almost certainly should be folding. I won't go into it, but with the info I had, I felt as though this was a fold. And I hit the call anyway. I just didn't even think about it. My brain shut off. So here's one I'll tag as just... Look, I faced a triple barrel on an ace-high board against a lot of people. You just don't need to do much bluff catching there. Like, most people don't bluff here enough. The guys who bluff too much, they can easily overdo it. But when everything bricks, are you really trying to get me to fold this hand? Look, I just called it. I said it's bad, and I called it anyway. It takes a little bit to pry top pair out of people's hands when draws brick. You're kind of going uphill. Open sevens in early position into a player I would like to be V-pipping in the big blind. Also a very aggressive player on the button. We're multi-way out of position, so we're doing a lot of checking. We face this small bet on the flop and this call on the flop with this really small bet. And already we have a decision, like, there's probably a path to make this profitable unless we just think that these guys have really, really strong ranges. Like if we're willing to bluff certain runouts, if we're confident in navigating for value, there's probably ways to get paid. But in the back of my mind, I'm a little bit concerned because when we hit the 7, like all the straights get there. Also, one of the sevens is the seven of diamonds. One of the sevens being the seven of diamonds means when we hit our trips, there's a lot of flushes out there. So again, they either have a flush or how do we actually get paid? So if our game plan is just to hit a seven and stack a king, I think that's really ambitious. So flop could just easily be a fold, and maybe that's standard for a lot of people. I'm totally open to it, just call with a diamond because life is easy. And like when we hit this seven, it's not a flush on that board. But we can also call, and some of the value of calling is I am going to target other runouts. Like if I think these guys are wide, if I think they're stabbing stuff like eights, like ace 10, then there's a lot of runouts like a diamond turn where maybe they just check and I can bluff river. I don't think I can just call sevens for the value, for the showdown, for the set. If I'm calling sevens, I'm planning to bluff certain runouts. So the question is, how good is that? How often do I just run into a flush compared to how often do I run into some trashy stuff I can sort of steal the pot from? So now we get this flush on the turn. I check, checks around. And so here's where, if the big blind player checks to me on the river, a lot of people don't really check many flushes there. They don't really protect their range. People don't check the nuts to check raise it very much. Easy move. You probably should think about it a bunch if people are going to bet for you. So if they're just going to bet all their flushes, and this guy checked the turn, so he's got to have checked some flushes after hitting on the turn. Looks like I actually have the most flushes when they've both checked to me, right? So river is mine to bluff if it checks around to me again. Whereas if the big blind bets, they might have raised some flushes on the flop, but they've got most of their flushes in their betting range. So here they check to me, and here I have a bluffing option. How big do I need to bet to make a top pair like king jack or king queen fold? Something that might bet the flop, check the turn. But if they literally have no flushes, why not just shove here, right? Because I think everything worse than a flush folds if I shove. I'm not saying I am certain they have no flushes, but imagine you were, because sometimes you are. You can shove and win the pot 99% of the time, and that's absolutely the most profitable play. Or the biggest size that gets you that same effect, the smaller size that gets you that effectively buying the pot. I think I'd like to just go like 150 to 200% pot here. And basically, unless they think I'm a bluffer, that's going to work a ton of the time. As soon as they think I'm a bluffer, again, I think this is good because I genuinely do have a lot of flushes here. I have a lot of flushes, and if I'm bluffing this, maybe too many bluffs. So they should call a lot. But I can simply stop bluffing and keep showing up with the flushes and make a lot of money. And that's why you're hard to play against when you're actually playing both sides of this, like, exploitative game. I end up checking. I hate that. Like I said, I don't think I have enough showdown now. And against these two players, I believe I have a ton of fold equity on the river. I think I should fold the flop, or I should 100% bluff this river. I can't have it both ways. I end up check calling against this guy. He did end up having the flush. Perhaps my intuition told me he had it. But if that is true, then I should likely fold the flop. So in conclusion, I think I should have folded the flop because I don't like the river bluff in hindsight. And you see how working through that hand each step of the way, street by street, I was able to see where my actions didn't line up, how my river action didn't support my flop action. And that makes the flop action an easy concession. Or I could say, no, I love this river bluff. Call, just remember to bluff next time. That's not how I assessed it in this moment, but those are my options. That's real poker study. That's real poker analysis. If you use a solver, you're using it to answer questions like that. You're not using it to copy it for the sake of copying it to avoid understanding that whole process. Do you see the difference? Like if I don't like the bluff, clearly I can just show up with value. If I do like the bluff, maybe I should show up with more bluffs. Fucking rocket surgery, right? Identify what feels like maybe is close and you're not sure which way to go and how to tip it, and then figure out what you need to know to tip it one way or the other. You have to price these human elements in if you actually want poker results, because you're actually really a human being really playing poker against other human beings. You don't get to just like skip to, wouldn't it be nice if I played like a solver? Just because preflop charts exist and are easy to copy doesn't mean you follow a preflop chart, Okay, back to our scheduled programming. Okay, this one, perhaps my diciest hand. What stakes are these? This is 5-10. And this is against someone I believe is a bot. End. I have them tagged as a bot. For a bunch of reasons I don't want to go into too extensively. But these small 3-bets are sort of a tell of it. They do these really cheesy lines. They're overrunning ignition right now. You get to this flop. They do the big c-bet on this flop. Kind of wild, but our hand has really good equity even against stuff like kings. I do think they just have jacks and aces here a shitload. Problem is my hand looks pretty and has a lot of equity, and this is where I get into trouble. Like if I'm just like, maybe they have crap, maybe there's some ace 4 of diamonds in here that gives up turn, cool is reasonable. If in reality they're pretending to be weak and they just have like a super linear range with a lot of ace of clubs in it, I'm fucked. So I think the call is okay, but I'm going to be put in dicey spots on the turn a lot. And because of this ambiguity, just because I don't know how to play, like, is calling good on the flop? I don't know. What's my plan on the turn that gives me edge on them? I don't know. Like, if they check, is it good for me? If they bet small, is it good for me? Like, where's my edge? If I think it's close, where's my edge? And if I can't answer that question, why do I need to VPip this hand? You know, just call with the ace of clubs, basically. Because they can't own me. They're just value betting me with like ace king with the ace of clubs, and they have a lot of those in range. We hit this one on the turn, and then they pot it, and this is like exactly like putting me in hell, right? Same with I had like an ace of clubs hand. Something like queen, something like aces with a club is owning me when I have like anything here except a set. But I also have a lot of sets here. Like I'm probably calling jacks. Maybe I do 4-bet jacks pre, but I definitely have 9s and 10s here. I definitely have 5s for the price. I have a ton of flushes. I have like all my flushes. So I'm not even very high in range. When they go this big, I have to reconsider, right? Like I don't often face pot-sized turn c-bets on a board this nutted. So I'm kind of just, to be honest, seeing, wow, a lot of outs. But I'm not contextualizing how much equity does my hand really have against their range. The board looks one way. The reality of the equity of my hand against their range might be very different. And so I won't go into how I know what their range is. That's, you know, the meat of the profession, right? That's a lot of experience, a lot of analysis. But I believe they're actually quite strong here rather than weak. I'm not certain, but I would bet on that, which is my job. And so I think I should fold. But again, I have a lapse in judgment, and I call because of this. I get to the river, they bet, and I fold. Sometimes these decisions are like pretty close or like cost you a few big blinds. Other times they look close, but they cost you 15 or 20 big blinds because you didn't really contextualize the spot. Okay, once again, I open, I face a 3-bet. We get a cold call from this recreational here. They're not the splashiest one in the world, and so I do run into this issue if they could just have like ace-jack, ace-queen, ace-king offsuit. So ace-9 of spades isn't thrilled. Like, how often do they just have like a worse flush draw here? Like, at this point, it'll be like 2 to 1 stack to pot ratio, 2.5 to 1. Do I want to put in like another 40 big blinds if I hit top pair against the recreational? Not really. And then we're not that deep if I hit the flush. So I don't think this has to be a defend by any means, especially depending on how wide I think this guy's 3-betting. Because he might, with the fish behind him, he might even just be cold calling a lot of stuff like 7-6 suited. Who knows if he's even 3-betting stuff like that. So honestly, I think I should probably just fold the ace-9. Like, I think I'm over investing. That's my feeling. If there's a small bet on the flop and on the king-high flop, once again, probably foldable. I probably don't need every backdoor flush draw here, unless I think his range is full of shit. Unless I think he has 7-6 suited, 7-6 of hearts here all day. I'm getting into a lot of trouble because he's just able to bluff the turn a ton. So I either need him to check turn to fold river a lot. I need to think he has garbage that I just get to show down against, right? So imagine he is super wide. And then he also just gives up after he bets one, one street. We know people like this. Against that guy, maybe I call flop and I'm happy. But because his range is tight, maybe I fold pre. Because his range is tight and it's a king-high flop, even with a backdoor, maybe I fold flop. But you could see how just going, oh, it's a backdoor, I call it, it's easy to rationalize. And I know I had these two thoughts in real time in game. And so, hence I review. Yeah, call, flush draw on the turn. I face the bet on the turn, and same situation. Is this good? Am I just going to call and then lose to ace queen of diamonds that was value betting me the whole way? Ace 10 of diamonds, ace jack of diamonds that are accidentally value betting, not bluffing the entire way. When I hit the spade on the river, are they going to check back ace king of hearts because they think they can't get paid? Am I going to donk the river and they fold it? Because how am I ever bluffing? Like, how am I actually getting paid? It's not as simple as having a flush draw. But again, it goes back to pre-flop. It goes back to flop. I think the call is fine, and I'm just praying now. But just looking back to tight pre-flop because of that fish dynamic, probably just a fold. Now we get a limp from an aggro player. I ISO quite big with jacks because I think they're paying me wide. I bet a third here, expecting all pairs to call and a lot of spades to call. I think I could go bigger. I think I can just go half pot. Ace-X as well. I think all the pocket pairs, even without a spade, still call me. I think I should just go half pot. This is a spot where I think their hands look pretty to them, so they're not actually very sizing sensitive. Especially this type of player, I think they're kind of a bingo player. So a half pot size, yeah, I think a lot of spades, ace-x pairs still call me. So I'm almost just like trying to like pot control in a way that doesn't suit me. A lot of runouts, I do want a bigger pot. On the turn, this is where I kind of want pot control, because now if I go half pot, am I still getting called by sevens, no spade? I'm not sure. I check, ace on the river. Again, a river, or I'm like kind of glad this is a small pot. I hope they check now, because I think they do have a lot of ace-x, especially when I went a third. But even for half, I think they hit it a lot. Do they always bet them? No, but they would usually bet them. And they go for this half pot size, and they're a very aggressive player, so this one is tricky. But I only need to win a quarter of the time. It's a smallish size. I don't know what their timing or like the vibe was, because sometimes that can reinforce that this just doesn't add up. I think they could surprise me here, but essentially I think they're wide enough pre-flop that they could just have any one spade hand and be bluffing, so it's not hard for them to over. I think they raise a lot of sets, a lot of flushes on the flop, so they don't have that many of those. And while they bet many ace-x, they don't bet all of them. So if they have offsuit stuff like, I don't know, 9-8 offsuit, Jack-10 offsuit, Queen-Jack offsuit, that's a shitload of combos, and so I think it's a fairly easy call. Bada bing. So this is one that doesn't need to go in the audit pile. This is one where win or lose, I have very high confidence in it. If he just had the flush, I would check and go, does this add up? But do we want to confirm? Like, this looks like he's wide pre-flop. Stats also look like really wide pre-flop. Evidence is he doesn't really limp fold. He limps way too many hands. This is what 50 VPIP looks like. How you go about manipulating them, what you go for the leverage on, depends a lot on their pre-flop tendencies. How much trash they have, how capped they are in different lines, how thin they like to go for value, whether they do the betting for you or you betting for them. Okay, face to 3-bet. They have a wide 3-bet range. I felt the 4-betting would work in this case. They call. Small bet on the flop. I end up checking the turn. I just don't want a pure bluff turn, but I think my hand's pretty reasonable to be bluffing. But I think they trap most of their value on the flop, and they can still have like aces in the pre-flop range, so I don't think I want to just bluff this because I have equity. And then obviously they just shove river and I have a fold. Whether or not I bluff river, I won't go into. Check, raise, draw, 10 on the turn, check, check, turn, go down hand on river. They bet small. Do they bet worse for value? No, we have a bluff catcher, hence this filter. Do I want to call? Are they bluffing enough after check calling the flop check raise than betting river? I don't know about that. Do I want to raise? Like, do they still have king queen even? I block tens. That's not bad. The tens might just bet the turn. They're pretty nitty. Like, I don't think they've got a very high river bet. This might even be one of these bot profiles. Yeah, they've got like 0% turn aggression. So I think this guy, because of the 0% turn aggression and these body tendencies, in fact, I'll tag them. This is sus as hell. Like, it's just so extreme. 3% 3-bet. Yeah, there's bots on coin. There's bots on every site. Yeah, I think he has a ton of nuts on the river, so I think he's actually just really strong. So I don't know if we would make a small profit by check raising this, but I think there's a chance we're just losing a lot of money. I think like their gimmick is getting to the river with a strong range. And so this is kind of inducey, so I should just fold. End up making the call. I hate it. This is an example of where I need to make the discipline fold or just determine for it and go for the raise. Them having the nines validates my thesis, and you see how I knew in hindsight perfectly from I don't know. Like I honestly didn't remember what they had, but it's fucking poker forensics. It's a hard way to make an honest living. I am currently taking coaching applications for my annual bootcamp and mentorship program next year. Poker doesn't have to be a solo journey. It's a team sport these days. darius@eqpoker.com. I look forward to hearing from you.